Hey guys, tonight we're taking a truly chilling journey deep into the heart of ancient Rome, a civilization famed for its vast empire, its mighty legions, and its seemingly absolute power. But we're not focusing on the grandeur of the Colosseum or the wisdom of its philosophers. Instead, we're pulling back the imperial purple curtain to uncover why being a Roman emperor sucked even for you. Forget unlimited power, endless luxury, and effortless divinity. You're about to discover a grim reality where the monarch's life was defined by immense, terrifying responsibilities, relentless political intrigue, constant threats, and an almost unbearable burden of maintaining cosmic and earthly order. This wasn't a life of serene leadership, it was a sacred prison, a gilded cage that often led to madness, paranoia, or a swift, violent end. Frankly, you probably wouldn't survive the initial acclamation without longing for a simple, anonymous existence as a common Roman citizen, let alone an entire reign. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me, where in the world are you tuning in from? And what time is it for you right now? Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself suddenly standing in the opulent yet suffocating confines of the imperial palace on Palatine Hill. In Rome itself, perhaps around the 1st or 2nd century CE, during the height of the empire's power, the air is thick with the cloying scent of exotic perfumes, the rich aroma of roasted meats, and the pervasive undercurrent of nervous energy from hundreds of courtiers, senators, and guards. You are not merely a wealthy senator or a celebrated general. You are the emperor, the princeps, the supreme ruler of the vast Roman world. Your life has been one of immense privilege, education, and political ambition. But now, as the purple robes are draped over your shoulders and the laurel wreath placed on your head, you realize the true nature of your position. This is the crown's weight, and the burden of absolute power is a crushing, isolating responsibility that will define your every moment. The very concept of a Roman emperor was a paradox. You were ostensibly the princeps civitatis, the first citizen, maintaining a facade of republican tradition. Yet, in reality, you wielded absolute, unprecedented power, commanding the vast Roman legions, controlling the empire's immense wealth, issuing laws, and acting as the supreme judge. Your will was law, shaping the lives of tens of millions of people across 3 continents. This was power beyond imagining, the ultimate dream for many ambitious Romans. However, this absolute power came with an almost unbearable burden of responsibility. The stability of the entire Roman Empire, its prosperity, its peace, and its very survival were believed to hinge on your leadership and your ability to maintain cosmic order, pax deorum. The peace of the gods, you were the direct link between humanity and the divine, responsible for appeasing the gods through meticulous rituals and sacrifices. If a plague struck, if a famine decimated the harvests, if a legion suffered defeat, or if the empire faced internal unrest, all could be attributed to your failings, your impiety, or your inability to maintain divine favor. This constant, overwhelming burden, this personal responsibility for the well-being of millions would gnaw at your peace of mind, leaving you in a perpetual state of anxiety. It truly sucked to be blamed for bad weather. Your daily life was a relentless cycle of demanding duties and constant scrutiny, from dawn till dusk. Your every moment was dictated by imperial responsibilities. Administration, you would spend countless hours with your imperial secretaries, advisors, and viziers issuing decrees, reviewing reports from distant provinces, managing state finances, and overseeing the vast Roman bureaucracy. Every major decision, from tax policy to public works, ultimately rested with you. Military command, as imperator, commander-in-chief, you were the supreme head of the Roman legions. You would consult with generals, plan campaigns, review troop deployments, and often personally lead armies into battle on the frontiers. The defense of the vast Roman borders from barbarian incursions was a perpetual concern, demanding constant vigilance and strategic acumen. Legal authority. You were the ultimate arbiter of justice, hearing appeals, presiding over trials, and issuing legal judgments that set precedents for the entire empire. The weight of condemning men or granting clemency rested solely on your shoulders. Religious duties. As Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, you were the head of the state religion, performing countless rituals, sacrifices, and ceremonies to appease the gods and ensure Pax Deorum. Your piety was crucial for the empire's divine favor. Public appearances. You were a constant public figure, expected to attend games in the Colosseum, preside over triumphs, address the Senate, and engage with the Roman populace through various festivals and displays. Maintaining your majestic image and projecting an aura of strength and stability was a perpetual performance. This relentless schedule, demanding expertise in military, administrative, legal, and religious affairs, left little to no time for personal leisure, true relaxation, or genuine self-expression. Your individuality was systematically subsumed by the sacred persona of the emperor, ensuring you were a flawless, unblemished conduit for imperial power. This constant need to perform, to embody a perfect, divine image, was emotionally exhausting, leaving you with little true personal life. It really sucked to literally work yourself to death for Rome. The isolation of your position was profound. As emperor, you were set apart from all mortals, even your closest advisors. While surrounded by thousands of courtiers, senators, military commanders, and servants, true intimacy or casual companionship was likely rare, or even impossible. Every relationship was tinged with ambition, suspicion, or deference. Your interactions would be governed by strict protocol, your words carefully chosen, and your true feelings often suppressed. This profound loneliness at the pinnacle of power would be a constant psychological burden, transforming your golden throne into a solitary confinement. The precarity of your reign was another terrifying aspect of your absolute power. Roman history is famously replete with emperors who met violent ends, assassination, forced suicide, or death in civil wars launched by ambitious rivals. The very power you wielded made you the ultimate prize, a constant target for those who coveted your throne. This pervasive threat, this knowledge that your reign could end abruptly and violently at any moment, fostered profound paranoia and anxiety, ensuring that even in moments of triumph, fear lurked just beneath the surface. One common misconception is that all Roman emperors were tyrants who enjoyed their absolute power without a second thought. In reality, while some certainly descended into megalomania or cruelty, many emperors, particularly the good emperors of the 2nd century CE like Trajan or Hadrian, were deeply conscious of their immense responsibilities and the heavy burden of ruling such a vast empire. They worked tirelessly, often endured immense stress, and faced profound challenges in maintaining stability. The Roman ideal of the Optimus Princeps, best ruler, emphasized duty and service to the state, not just personal indulgence. Historians still meticulously study Roman imperial biographies like those of Suetonius, Tacitus, Cassius Dio, administrative decrees, and philosophical commentaries. G. Seneca's De Clementia, written for Nero to understand the precise daily routines, political challenges, and personal burdens faced by different emperors, consistently revealing a life far more demanding and stressful than popular imagination suggests. Furthermore, the lack of a clear hereditary succession law, at least for much of the Principate period, added another layer of constant stress and vulnerability. While emperors might adopt heirs, the legitimacy of succession was often contested, leading to periods of civil war and instability like the Year of 4 Emperors or the crisis of the 3rd century. This meant that your reign was perpetually threatened by ambitious generals, scheming senators, or discontented Praetorian guards, all vying for the ultimate prize, ensuring that every day was a battle for political survival. The psychological toll of carrying such immense burdens would be immense. You would live with perpetual anxiety about the empire's well-being, the loyalty of your generals, the stability of your court, and the omnipresent threat of assassination. Sleep would be restless, plagued by worries and nightmares, this relentless mental strain, this constant need to be vigilant, to trust no one completely, would erode your peace of mind, leading to profound paranoia, cynicism, or even madness, as exemplified by emperors like Caligula or Nero. Your existence was a continuous battle against external threats and internal demons, fought at the highest possible stakes, the very concept of divine adulation, while seemingly elevating, also created an impossible standard. You were expected to be perfect, to be infallible, to embody the very virtues of Rome. Any personal failing, any illness, any military setback, could be interpreted as a sign of divine displeasure or a personal weakness, undermining your legitimacy. This constant pressure to perform a divine role, even when your mortal body and mind struggled, was a profound and constant source of stress. You were simultaneously worshipped and relentlessly scrutinized, a living paradox of power and vulnerability. So, your initiation into the life of a Roman emperor was not a mere change of title, but a profound and terrifying transformation. The crown's immense weight translated into a crushing burden of absolute power, demanding relentless responsibilities for maintaining the vast empire and its cosmic order. This pervasive, unyielding pressure, coupled with the profound isolation and constant threat of a violent end, was the first, and perhaps most defining, aspect of why being a Roman emperor sucked even for you, having donned the heavy, symbolic robes of power. Your life as a Roman emperor was immediately plunged into a perpetual state of vigilance and terror. Forget secure reigns and loyal subjects. Palace intrigue became your constant companion, marked by whispers of plots, terrifying assassination attempts, and insidious betrayals from within your own court, making your job profoundly sucked. Imagine the pervasive paranoia that gnawed at your peace of mind, day and night, even within the supposed sanctity of your imperial palace on Palatine Hill. As emperor, you wielded absolute power, yet that very power made you the most coveted prize, the ultimate target for ambitious rivals. Everyone around you, from your closest advisors and viziers to your most trusted eunuchs and personal guards. Even members of your own royal family could be a potential conspirator. Your life, your reign, and the stability of the entire Roman Empire hinged on your ability to discern loyalty from deception and truth from insidious lies. The palace, for all its grandeur, was a labyrinth of treachery, and you were its most vulnerable inhabitant. It truly sucked to be perpetually afraid of everyone you met. Assassination attempts were a chilling reality for many Roman emperors, a grim occupational hazard that was often more likely to end your reign than a barbarian invasion. These weren't always dramatic, open assaults. They were often subtle, insidious attempts, orchestrated in the shadows by those with intimate access to your person. Poison. This was perhaps the most feared method, and Roman historical accounts are rife with emperors like Claudius, Britannicus, or even Trajan, according to some suspicious accounts, who were believed to have been poisoned. Imagine every meal, every drink, every seemingly benevolent gift of food or wine becoming a source of profound terror. You would rely heavily on food tasters, slaves or trusted officials who would sample your food and drink before you consumed it, often dying agonizingly if a plot was successful. But even a taster couldn't guarantee absolute safety, as poisons could be slow-acting, or specifically designed to affect only certain individuals. The psychological burden of this constant vigilance, this daily dance with death, where your sustenance itself was a weapon, would be immense. A bitter taste, a sudden, unexplained illness among your staff, or a lingering malaise in your own body would immediately spark horrifying suspicions. It truly sucked to literally eat death for dinner. Subtle physical violence. Plots could involve more direct, yet still clandestine, violence. A fall down a treacherous staircase could be orchestrated. An accident during a chariot ride or hunt. A seemingly benign illness that rapidly consumed your body could be the work of a hired physician administering a lethal concoction. These attempts would be engineered by those with intimate access to your person, your personal barber, your bath attendant, your physician, or even your beloved spouse or concubine. Trusting anyone implicitly became a dangerous luxury, as the people closest to you also held the greatest opportunity for a quiet, lethal strike. Suffocation or strangulation. For emperors isolated by illness or old age, the intimate proximity of attendants or family members could provide an opportunity for silent murder. Accounts of emperors being smothered in their beds like Tiberius, though debated, highlight this chilling vulnerability. Magical attacks. As discussed in a previous episode, the disturbing world of curses and black magic in ancient Rome. Chapter 9. The belief in magic was pervasive. Rivals might employ dark curses or magical rituals aimed at causing illness, madness, or death, while you, as emperor, were protected by state rituals and divine favor. The pervasive belief in such dark arts would fuel paranoia among courtiers and contribute to the atmosphere of fear surrounding any suspected conspiracy. This added a psychological dimension to the real dangers of poison and rebellion, making the invisible threats almost as potent as the visible ones. Beyond direct assassination, political conspiracies were a constant, pervasive threat to your reign. Powerful factions within the court rival senatorial families, ambitious military commanders, disgruntled senators, influential freedmen, or the supporters of a rival prince or a favored empress or consort would perpetually scheme to undermine your authority, discredit your trusted advisors, or even orchestrate your downfall. They would use whispers and slander, malicious rumors about your competence, your piety, your health, your moral character, or your personal conduct would be meticulously spread through the court grapevine. These insidious whispers, carried by countless courtiers, eunuchs, and palace maids, could subtly poison public and court opinion against you, eroding your support base from within. Fabricated evidence rivals might meticulously plant incriminating documents, forge letters, orchestrate false testimonies from coerced slaves or disgruntled former officials, or stage events designed to implicate you or your loyalists in wrongdoing. The highly centralized and bureaucratic nature of the Roman state meant that records could be manipulated, and accusations could be formally levied. Even without truth, your vast imperial bureaucracy, meant to serve you, could also become a tool for your destruction, exploiting your weaknesses, your genuine illnesses, as we'll discuss in Chapter 8, your personal preferences for a particular individual or a specific type of entertainment, or any perceived flaws like indecisiveness or excessive indulgence would be meticulously noted and exploited by those seeking your downfall. If you favored a particular consort, her rivals would use her influence against you. If you showed any signs of physical or mental weakness, they would capitalize on it, viewing it as an opportunity to strike military mutiny. The ultimate threat, your power rested on the loyalty of the legions. An ambitious general, a disgruntled legion, or a financially incentivized Praetorian Guard could launch a military coup, marching on Rome to depose or kill you and install their own chosen candidate. This terrifying vulnerability to your own armed forces was a constant source of anxiety, making you perpetually wary of your most powerful servants. The very harem imperial household of wives and concubines was a potential hotbed of intrigue, as discussed in How a Joseon Dynasty Queen Endured a Miserable Palace Life. Chapter 3, the principle was similar even if structures differed. Ambitious empresses or consorts, desperate to elevate their sons to the succession, would ruthlessly scheme against rivals, against your preferred heir, or even against you if you stood in their way. The famous example of Livia Drusilla, wife of Augustus, who was rumored, though unproven, to have removed various obstacles, including her own stepsons, to ensure her son Tiberius's succession, highlights the pervasive suspicion of royal female intrigue. The psychological toll of living under such constant threat would be immense. You would suffer from profound paranoia, constantly questioning the loyalty of everyone around you, even your closest friends and family members. Sleep would be restless. Plagued by worries and nightmares of betrayal and assassination, you would be perpetually hyper-vigilant, analyzing every gesture, every smile, every whispered conversation for hidden meanings or veiled threats. This relentless mental strain, this constant need to be on guard, to trust no one completely, would erode your peace of mind, leading to profound anxiety, cynicism, and often madness, as exemplified by emperors like Caligula or Nero, whose reigns were characterized by extreme paranoia, arbitrary executions, and profound cruelty, often spiraling out of their own fear. Your existence was a continuous battle against external threats and internal demons, fought at the highest possible stakes. One common misconception is that all Roman emperors were powerful tyrants who suffered from extreme paranoia, while the potential for paranoia was inherent in the position, and some emperors succumbed to it. Many others managed to rule effectively without descending into madness. However, even for the most benevolent rulers, the threat of intrigue and assassination was a very real, existential concern that they constantly had to manage. The Roman imperial system, particularly during its early centuries, lacked a clear, formalized succession process, which often fueled intense competition among potential heirs and ambitious elites, making intrigue an almost inevitable aspect of court life. Historians still meticulously study Roman imperial biographies like those by Suetonius, Tacitus, and Cassius Dio, which are rich in accounts of palace plots and assassinations, though often biased by the author's political leanings, as well as archaeological findings, e.g., evidence of poisoning or defensive measures in palaces to understand the precise nature, frequency, and impact of palace intrigue and the strategies emperors employed to survive it. Furthermore, the very act of punishing detected conspirators was a source of immense stress and political instability, while often swift and brutal executions, forced suicides, banishments, damnatio memoriae. These purges could destabilize the court, create new enemies from the purged families, and leave power vacuums. You, the emperor, had to constantly balance the need to eliminate threats with the risk of creating further unrest. A complex and morally fraught decision that only added to your burden. Your own actions, however necessary for survival, could fuel further cycles of violence and distrust, making your reign a continuous battle against a hydra of intrigue. The isolation of your position as emperor, while seemingly granting ultimate freedom, paradoxically heightened your vulnerability. You were set apart from all mortals, surrounded by sycophants and potential plotters. True, unfiltered information was often difficult to obtain, as it was filtered through layers of bureaucracy and potentially biased advisors. This created an environment where you could be subtly manipulated or deliberately kept in the dark, making you susceptible to the machinations of those closest to you. Your divine aura and immense power were your greatest assets, but also your greatest vulnerabilities, targets for those who coveted your throne. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the pervasive reality of palace intrigue. You lived under the constant threat of assassination attempts and insidious political conspiracies, orchestrated by ambitious rivals from within your own court. This relentless battle against whispers, plots, and betrayals, culminating in a pervasive sense of profound paranoia, ensured that your divine rule was a constant, terrifying dance with unseen dangers, where your gilded palace was also your deadliest battlefield, and your throne, a permanent target. Having survived the treacherous labyrinth of palace intrigue and the ever-present threat of assassination from within your own court, you, the Roman emperor, now faced a profound and terrifying paradox, the very institution designed to protect you. The Praetorian Guard was also your most immediate and unpredictable danger. Forget unwavering loyalty. These were loyal protectors who could become deadly masters, making your reign profoundly sucked. Imagine your daily life in the imperial palace. You are surrounded by legions of guards, hundreds of elite soldiers, meticulously trained and personally loyal to you, the emperor. This is the Praetorian Guard, cohortes praetoriae, the emperor's personal bodyguard, stationed in and around Rome. Their presence, with their distinctive armor and disciplined bearing, was meant to instill confidence, to project your power, and to ensure your absolute safety from enemies both foreign and domestic. But this elite force, essential for your security, was also a constant source of immense anxiety and potential peril. It truly sucked to have your bodyguards be your biggest threat. The Praetorian Guard, established by Augustus, quickly evolved into the single most powerful military force within the Roman Empire. Wielding immense political influence, they were highly paid, received better conditions and shorter service terms than regular legionaries, and were uniquely stationed in and around Rome. Their proximity to the emperor, their control over access to the palace, and their formidable military might meant they were the ultimate arbiters of imperial power. Their loyalty was paramount, but it was also often mercenary and conditional. Their loyalty was typically to the person of the emperor, not necessarily to the institution of the empire or a dynastic lineage. This meant that when an emperor died, or when they felt an emperor was weak, ineffective, or simply unpopular, their allegiance could swiftly shift. They had the power to make and unmake emperors, often by brutal force. Imagine living every day knowing that the very men sworn to protect you could, at any moment, decide your fate turn against you and replace you with a more favorable candidate, this omnipresent threat, this knowledge that your Praetorians could become your executioners, was a constant, gnawing source of terror. It really sucked to literally sleep with your assassins. The history of the Roman Empire is tragically replete with examples of emperors who rose or fell by the will of the Praetorian Guard. Caligula reigned 37 to 41 CE, was assassinated by members of his own Praetorian Guard, who then found Claudius, his uncle, hiding behind a curtain and promptly acclaimed him emperor. This swift transition, orchestrated entirely by the Guard, highlighted their power to dictate succession. Galba reigned 68 to 69 CE, was murdered by the Praetorian Guard after failing to deliver on promised donatives monetary gifts. His head was paraded on a pike, and Otho was then acclaimed emperor. Didius Julianus reigned 193 CE, famously bought the emperorship from the Praetorian Guard after they auctioned it off following the murder of his predecessor, Pertinax. He lasted only 66 days before they abandoned him, and he was executed. This chilling event, where the throne was literally for sale to the highest bidder, brutally demonstrated the Guard's venality and their capacity for absolute control over imperial power. It really sucked to literally buy your own death sentence. The donatives donativum, or immense monetary gifts, played a crucial role in securing or attempting to secure the Praetorian Guard's loyalty. Every new emperor was expected to offer a substantial donative upon their accession, essentially buying the Guard's allegiance. Subsequent donatives might be offered on important occasions or to quell unrest. This created a dangerous precedent. The Guard came to expect these payments, and any perceived stinginess or delay could lead to disgruntlement, mutiny, and even assassination. You were constantly in debt to your own protectors, perpetually trying to buy their loyalty. The Praetorian Guard also held immense power through their control over access to the emperor. They guarded the palace, vetted visitors, and accompanied the emperor on all his movements. This meant they could isolate you, manipulate information, or prevent certain individuals from reaching you. They were your eyes and ears, but they could also blind and deafen you, making you utterly dependent on their filtered reality. This control over your immediate environment created a pervasive sense of claustrophobia and vulnerability. Even within your own palace, the psychological toll of constantly living under the shadow of your own protectors would be immense. You would live with profound paranoia, constantly questioning the loyalty of every Praetorian on duty, every centurion, every commander. Sleep would be restless, plagued by nightmares of a dagger in the dark, or the sudden sound of tramping feet approaching your chamber. This relentless mental strain, this inability to truly trust your most essential security detail, would erode your peace of mind, leading to profound anxiety, suspicion, and often the very madness that characterized many Roman emperors. Your reign was a perpetual battle against the very men who guarded your life. The prestige and influence of the Praetorian Guard were often resented by the regular legions stationed on the frontiers. This created a delicate balance for you, the emperor. While you needed the Guard for your immediate security in Rome, you also needed to maintain the loyalty of the vast legions who defended the empire's borders. Favoring the Praetorians too much could alienate the legions, leading to military revolts. Neglecting the Praetorians could lead to a palace coup. You were constantly walking a tightrope, trying to balance these competing military loyalties, knowing that a misstep could lead to civil war. One common misconception is that the Praetorian Guard was purely a military unit. In reality, they were deeply embedded in Roman politics, acting as a powerful political faction unto themselves. Their influence extended far beyond military matters. often playing a decisive role in imperial succession, influencing policy and acting as a check or sometimes an unhinged hammer on the emperor's power. Their political weight was often as significant, if not more so, than their military might. Historians still meticulously study Roman imperial biographies like those of Suetonius, Tacitus, and Cassius Dio, which are rich in accounts of Praetorian coups and assassinations, as well as epigraphical evidence inscriptions detailing Praetorian service and donatives to understand the precise nature of their political power and their impact on imperial stability, confirming their role as both protectors and ultimate threats to emperors. Furthermore, the very act of bribing the Praetorian Guard to secure loyalty was a source of internal moral decay. It explicitly linked your rule to monetary exchange. Rather than legitimate authority or divine right, this commodification of loyalty undermined the very ideal of imperial power, reducing your position to something that could be bought and sold. You were forced to participate in a system that publicly or semi-publicly acknowledged your dependence on the mercenary loyalty of your own guards. The lack of a clear succession mechanism for much of the Principate period, the early Roman Empire also contributed directly to the Praetorian Guard's immense power. Without a fixed hereditary line, the Guard often stepped in to choose the next emperor or to legitimize a new claimant, acting as kingmakers. This inherent instability in the imperial system provided the perfect breeding ground for their influence, ensuring that their loyalty was perpetually for sale and their blades were always sharpened. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the pervasive reality of the Praetorian Guard. These loyal protectors were also your most immediate and unpredictable danger, capable of making or unmaking emperors with their mercenary loyalty and formidable military might. This constant threat of assassination, mutiny, and political manipulation from within your own palace ensured that your reign was a perpetual tightrope walk. Your ultimate authority held hostage by the very men sworn to protect your life. Even as you wrestled with the terrifying influence of the Praetorian Guard and battled the constant threat of palace intrigue, your life as a Roman emperor was consumed by an even larger, more relentless responsibility, war and conquest. Forget grand triumphs and effortless victories. Your divine role as commander-in-chief meant constant pressure to lead armies, defend vast borders, and manage pervasive military threats, making your job profoundly sucked. Imagine the colossal burden that constantly weighed on your mind. As imperator, the supreme commander of Rome's vast legions, you were personally responsible for the empire's defense, its expansion, and the maintenance of its immense territorial integrity. The Roman Empire, particularly during its height, 1st and 2nd centuries CO, was a sprawling entity, its borders stretching for thousands of miles across diverse and often hostile landscapes, constantly facing threats from barbarian incursions along the Rhine and Danube frontiers. Germanic tribes frequently launched raids or attempted large-scale migrations into Roman territory, demanding constant vigilance and military response. Eastern empires in the east, the formidable Parthian and later Sasanian Persian Empire, posed a persistent strategic threat, leading to protracted, costly wars over disputed territories like Armenia or Mesopotamia, rebellious provinces and client states. Discontent or outright rebellion could erupt anywhere within the vast empire, from troublesome provinces in Gaul to rebellious client kingdoms in the Near East, demanding swift and brutal military suppression. Internal claimants, ambitious generals, often commanding powerful legions on the frontiers, could launch civil wars, marching on Rome to depose you and seize the throne. This internal military threat was arguably even more terrifying than external enemies, as it came from within your own forces. Your military duties were relentless and multifaceted, consuming a significant portion of your time and mental energy. Leading campaigns, you were expected to personally lead your armies into battle, often at the head of your legions, inspiring your troops with your divine presence and strategic acumen. This meant enduring long, arduous marches across vast and often inhospitable terrain through scorching deserts, over treacherous mountains, or across muddy, cold plains. You would face harsh climates, supply shortages, and the constant risk of disease that plagued ancient armies. Imagine riding into the thick of battle, a living god, but feeling the fear of death, the dust of combat, and the cries of the wounded. Just like any mortal soldier, your presence was crucial for morale, but it also put your own life at immense risk. Far from the security of the palace, it truly sucked to be a general who couldn't even hide behind his troops. Strategic planning. You would spend countless hours with your generals, military scribes, and logistical officers, meticulously planning campaigns, assessing enemy strengths and weaknesses, analyzing terrain, and determining the immense logistical needs: food, water, equipment, reinforcements for armies of tens of thousands of men operating far from Rome. These were complex, high-stakes decisions where a single miscalculation, a poorly chosen route, a delayed supply convoy, or an underestimation of the enemy could lead to devastating defeat for your legions and immense territorial losses for Egypt, the fate of millions, and the empire's very future rested on your strategic genius, maintaining discipline and morale. Commanding a vast professional army required constant attention to discipline and morale. You had to balance strict enforcement of military law with ensuring your soldiers were adequately paid, fed, and rewarded for their service. Discontent among the legions could lead to mutiny or, worse, a declaration of a rival emperor, directly threatening your throne. Diplomacy and alliances, warfare was not just about brute force. It involved intricate diplomatic maneuvering. You would negotiate treaties with foreign powers, forge alliances with client kings, and exchange diplomatic correspondence like those found in the Amarna letters, detailing relations with other Near Eastern powers in an earlier era. But the principle held, all aimed at securing Rome's interests, avoiding costly wars when possible, or ensuring victory when inevitable. Your subtle political skill could avert a conflict or secure vital allies, influencing the lives of countless soldiers and civilians without a single sword drawn. The brutal reality of ancient warfare was a constant source of profound stress. Battles were bloody, chaotic affairs with terrifyingly high casualty rates. Even a victory meant immense human cost, thousands of Roman soldiers killed or wounded, their families plunged into grief, and vital manpower lost to the empire. The logistics of feeding, watering, and supplying a massive army on campaign were monumental, often leading to scarcity, widespread disease, and rampant desertion among your own troops. You would be personally responsible for the lives of thousands of men, knowing that many would not return home, and that their suffering was a direct consequence of your command. It really sucked to literally pave your empire with dead bodies. Military failures were profoundly stressful and could have devastating consequences for your reign. A lost battle could mean the invasion of Roman territory, the loss of valuable provinces and resources, a severe blow to your prestige, or a profound loss of public confidence in your divine favor or your competence as a ruler. Such failures could embolden enemies, incite further rebellions within the empire, or, most dangerously, lead to political instability within your own court. with ambitious rivals questioning your legitimacy or your fitness to rule, the pressure to always be victorious, to always embody the triumphant power of Rome, was immense and unforgiving. A constant burden that haunted your every decision. One common misconception is that all Roman emperors were constantly out on campaign, personally leading every battle from the front lines, while many emperors did indeed lead campaigns, e.g. Trajan, Marcus Aurelius, Septimius Severus, and were present on the battlefield. Their role was primarily that of a divine commander and inspirer of troops, directing strategy from their command tents or riding at the head of their legions. Rather than personally engaging in hand-to-hand combat like a common soldier, they faced real danger from ambushes, enemy projectiles, and disease. But their primary value was symbolic leadership, which they performed meticulously. Historians still meticulously study Roman military treatises like Vegetius's De Re Militari, detailed campaign accounts, Caesar's Commentari de Bello Gallico, and archaeological findings of battle sites to understand the precise role of the emperor in combat and the intricate structure of Roman military campaigns. Furthermore, the long absences from the capital during military campaigns added another layer of immense stress. While you were away leading armies, the complex administration of Rome and its vast empire continued. You relied heavily on your viziers, praetorian prefects, and scribes to manage domestic affairs, control the city populace, and maintain political stability. However, your prolonged absence could create opportunities for palace intrigue or political maneuvering by ambitious rivals, as explored in Chapter 2. You had to constantly balance the immediate demands of military leadership with the crucial need to maintain absolute control over your court and capital, ensuring your empire remained stable even as you fought to expand or defend it. This constant geopolitical juggling act, often performed from thousands of miles away, was a profound source of anxiety and mental strain. The psychological toll of constant warfare, of perpetually being on campaign, or of receiving grim reports from distant frontiers, would be immense. You would live with the perpetual anxiety of battle, the immense responsibility for thousands of lives, and the ever-present threat of military defeat that could unravel your entire reign. Witnessing the horrors of combat firsthand, receiving news of devastating casualties, and confronting the suffering of your soldiers would leave deep psychological scars. This relentless exposure to violence and the immense pressure to always be victorious would erode your peace of mind, leading to profound paranoia, cynicism, or even madness, transforming you into a hardened, yet deeply burdened, military leader. Your divine aura had to mask a profound human stress, as you perpetually fought a battle for both your empire and your own sanity. The cult of the emperor as a warrior king, prominently depicted in countless Roman reliefs, statuary, and triumphal arches showing emperors smiting their enemies and leading victorious campaigns, further reinforced this immense pressure. You were expected to live up to this glorified image, constantly striving for military victories that would solidify your divine status and secure the prosperity and glory of Rome. This external expectation, this constant need to embody the ideal of the triumphant warrior, added another layer of stress to your already demanding military duties, forcing you into a continuous performance of military prowess. The financial cost of maintaining legions and launching campaigns was also immense, constantly draining the imperial treasury. You, the emperor, were responsible for finding the resources to fund these endless wars, often through taxation, tribute from conquered lands, or by exploiting imperial mines and assets. This financial burden, coupled with the human cost, was a constant concern. shaping your economic policies and limiting your ability to invest in other areas of the empire. Your strategic decisions were often constrained by the grim realities of the imperial budget. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the relentless demands of war and conquest. Your divine role as commander-in-chief meant constant pressure to lead armies, defend the vast borders, and manage pervasive military threats, often in brutal combat with immense human cost. This pervasive burden of warfare, a defining and inescapable aspect of your rule, ensured that even a living god spent much of his reign battling the complexities, horrors, and immense responsibilities of military command, perpetually engaged in a high-stakes struggle for the empire's very survival and expansion, even as you, the emperor, wrestled with the immense pressures of war and the constant threat of military rebellion. Your ultimate responsibility was to the very heavens themselves. Forget human enemies. Your reign was perpetually overshadowed by famine and plague, seen as divine blame and leading to devastating mortal consequences, making your job profoundly sucked. Imagine the terrifying reports that would reach your palace from across the vast Roman Empire. News of a sudden, unseasonal drought baking the fertile fields of Egypt, the breadbasket of Rome, whispers of rats proliferating in the granaries of Ostia, the port of Rome, tales of a strange, virulent disease sweeping through the legions on the Rhine or the crowded slums of Antioch. These were not just natural disasters in the Roman worldview. They were often interpreted as direct manifestations of the gods' displeasure, a terrifying reflection on your reign and your ability to maintain pax deorum, the peace of the gods. It truly sucked to be blamed for bad weather and diseases. Famine was a constant, terrifying threat that could unravel your empire, Roman society, particularly its vast urban populations like Rome itself, which depended heavily on imported grain, was incredibly vulnerable to disruptions in food supply. If a major grain-producing province like Egypt or North Africa suffered a bad harvest, if storms disrupted maritime trade routes, or if bandits or pirates interdicted convoys, the consequences were swift and catastrophic. Widespread starvation. Imagine receiving reports of bread riots in Rome, of prices for grain skyrocketing beyond the reach of the common plebeian, of thousands of people in the provinces wasting away from hunger. As emperor, you would be personally responsible for ensuring the sustenance of your vast population. You would have to organize immense grain convoys, often at great expense and logistical difficulty, diverting precious resources from military campaigns or public works. Political unrest famine inevitably led to widespread discontent. Unrest and riots. A starving populace could quickly turn against its emperor, questioning your divine favor, your competence, or your legitimacy. This could lead to local rebellions, widespread banditry, or even challenges to your throne from ambitious rivals who would exploit the suffering to gain support. The psychological burden of knowing your people were starving, and that their misery directly reflected on your rule, would be immense. It truly sucked to watch your people die of hunger. Economic collapse. A widespread famine would cripple the empire's economy, reducing tax revenues, disrupting trade, and causing immense social dislocation. This weakened the very foundation of your power, making it harder to maintain your legions or fund your imperial projects. Then there was the even more terrifying specter of plague and epidemic disease, the Roman Empire, with its vast network of roads, its bustling cities, and its constant movement of people, goods, and armies, was a superhighway for pathogens. A new disease could sweep across continents, claiming lives at an astonishing rate, utterly overwhelming ancient medicine, undiagnosable terror. Roman physicians, while skilled in some areas like wound care, had no understanding of germ theory or the microscopic causes of infection. They attributed plagues to miasmas, bad air, astrological alignments, or divine wrath. The remedies bloodletting, purging, herbal concoctions were utterly ineffective and often harmful, offering no true cure. As emperor, you would witness the horrifying progress of the disease, watching your people, your legions, and your courts succumb. Utterly powerless to stop it, mass mortality epidemics like the Antonine Plague c. 165-180 CE, believed to be smallpox or measles, devastated the Roman Empire, possibly killing millions. Estimates range widely, from 5% to 30% of the total population. The plague of Cyprian, Sai, 250-271 C, and later the plague of Justinian, 6th century CE, had similarly catastrophic impacts. Imagine receiving reports of entire cities decimated, legions losing half their men, and the daily death tolls soaring. You would see the streets filled with unburied bodies, the horror reflecting your inability to protect your people. It truly sucked to be powerless against an invisible killer. Social and political breakdown plagues led to widespread panic, societal breakdown, and moral decay. People would abandon their families, flee cities, and disregard laws, believing death was imminent and arbitrary. This social chaos threatened the very stability of your empire. The immense loss of life also crippled the economy, reduced tax revenues, and severely depleted the manpower for your legions and administration, directly weakening your ability to govern and defend the empire. Divine displeasure, like famine. Plague was often attributed to divine wrath, a sign that you, the emperor, had failed to maintain Pax Deorum. This religious blame amplified the political pressure, leading to desperate rituals, persecutions, targeting Christians as scapegoats, and a gnawing fear that your rule was inherently flawed in the eyes of the gods. Your direct responsibility for these catastrophic events, while ultimately beyond your mortal control, was a defining burden of your imperial role. You were expected to offer prayers, preside over sacrifices, and enact policies to alleviate suffering, hoping that your piety and efforts would appease the gods and restore order. The failure to do so, regardless of objective circumstances, could undermine your legitimacy, lead to public unrest, and encourage ambitious rivals to challenge your throne. One common misconception is that Roman emperors were entirely secular rulers. In reality, the emperor was also the Pontifex Maximus chief priest, the head of the state religion. With immense religious responsibilities, his role in ensuring Pax Deorum was crucial, and any natural disaster or epidemic was seen as a direct challenge to his ability to maintain divine favor. This fusion of secular and religious authority meant that an emperor's political fortunes were inextricably linked to perceived divine blessings or curses. Historians still meticulously study Roman imperial propaganda, jigja coins, reliefs depicting emperors sacrificing religious texts, and philosophical discussions about the relationship between rulers and divine will, confirming the deep connection between imperial legitimacy and perceived divine favor in the face of natural disasters. Furthermore, the psychological toll of constantly facing the specter of famine and plague, of witnessing immense suffering and death across your vast empire, would be immense. You would live with a perpetual sense of dread, haunted by the cries of your starving people and the sight of countless bodies, the knowledge that millions of lives hinged on unpredictable natural cycles, or the spread of unseen pathogens, and that you were ultimately powerless to stop them, would erode your peace of mind. This relentless burden, this constant confrontation with human mortality and divine judgment, would lead to profound anxiety, cynicism, or even madness, transforming your divine rule into a heavy, agonizing curse. The very scale of the Roman Empire, while a source of pride, also exacerbated these problems. A plague or famine in one province could quickly spread across vast distances, turning a local crisis into an imperial catastrophe. Your ability to respond effectively was limited by communication delays, logistical challenges, and the sheer scale of the population affected. This vastness, which defined your power, also magnified your vulnerability to forces that defied your control. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the terrifying burden of famine and plague, these devastating natural disasters, seen as a reflection of your divine rule and leading to immense mortal consequences, presented a constant threat to your legitimacy, your people's well-being, and the stability of your empire. This pervasive responsibility for cosmic order over forces ultimately beyond your control was a defining and inescapable aspect of your job, ensuring that your reign was a constant, anxious dance with the unpredictable and often lethal whims of nature. Even as you, the emperor, grappled with the terrifying burdens of famine and plague, your public life was a relentless, exhausting performance. Forget private indulgence, the demands for public spectacle meant a constant exposure to pressure and paranoia, making your job profoundly sucked. Imagine your daily reality within the imperial palace. As emperor, you were not just a ruler, you were a living symbol of Rome's power, prosperity, and divine favor. Your image was meticulously cultivated, projected onto coins, statues, and monuments across the vast empire. But this public image required a relentless physical performance in front of your people, draining your energy and consuming your time. It truly sucked to be perpetually on. The demands for public spectacle were manifold and unyielding. Games in the Colosseum and circuses. You were expected to preside over the gladiatorial games in the Colosseum and the chariot races in the Circus Maximus. These were not optional appearances. They were crucial for maintaining popular support panem et circenses, bread and circuses, providing food and entertainment to keep the populace content. You would spend hours in the imperial box, watching brutal combat, animal hunts, and high-speed races. You had to maintain a regal, impassive demeanor, offering gestures of approval or condemnation like the infamous thumbs down that held immense power over life and death. Imagine the sensory overload, the roar of 50,000 to 100,000 spectators, the stench of blood and sweat, the sounds of suffering, all while maintaining a facade of serene authority. Your presence was vital to legitimize the games, but also exposed you to the mob's fickle judgment. It truly sucked to be entertainment for your own people. Triumphs and processions after a major military victory. You would lead a grand triumph, a colossal procession through the streets of Rome, displaying captured enemies, vast plunder, and your victorious legions. This was the ultimate spectacle of imperial power, but it was physically demanding, requiring hours of slow marching, riding in a chariot, and enduring the cheers or silent scrutiny of hundreds of thousands. You were the central figure in a meticulously choreographed theatrical event designed to reinforce your divine authority and military prowess. Public audiences and speeches. You would regularly hold public audiences in the Forum or other civic spaces, addressing the populace, receiving petitions, and listening to their grievances. Your speeches would then need to be eloquent, inspiring, and persuasive, conveying strength and wisdom. This required immense rhetorical skill and stamina, performed before a demanding and often boisterous crowd, religious festivals and sacrifices. As Pontifex Maximus, chief priest, you were the head of the state religion, leading countless public sacrifices and religious ceremonies to appease the gods and ensure pax deorum. These were meticulously ritualized performances, requiring precise movements, memorized chants, and profound piety, all done in full view of the public. Your flawless execution of these rites was believed to secure divine favor for Rome, placing immense pressure on your performance. Public works dedications, the dedication of new temples, aqueducts, forums, or baths required your public presence and blessing. These events showcased your benefaction and the grandeur of your reign, but also demanded your time and attention, forcing you to constantly project an image of active, benevolent leadership. This relentless demand for public spectacle created an immense physical toll. Hours spent standing, marching, or sitting upright in uncomfortable regalia under the sun could lead to exhaustion, heat stroke, and physical strain. Your voice, perpetually engaged in speeches or pronouncements, could become hoarse. Your body was constantly on display, a living symbol, with little time for true rest or recuperation. The psychological burden of this perpetual performance was immense. You lived under constant scrutiny. Every facial expression, every gesture, every word was observed and interpreted by courtiers, rivals, and the populace. A perceived sign of weakness, illness, or displeasure could be interpreted as a bad omen or an indication of your declining power. Potentially emboldening rivals or sparking discontent, this constant need to maintain an unblemished, divine facade, even when you were internally struggling with stress, illness, or paranoia, was profoundly draining. You were always acting, always performing, even in your own palace. It truly sucked to constantly perform your own divinity. This pervasive scrutiny fueled your paranoia. You knew that any misstep, any public failure to project imperial majesty could be exploited by ambitious senators, disloyal generals, or scheming Praetorian guards. As discussed in Chapter 3, the roar of the crowd could turn to discontent, the silent respect to murmurs of disapproval. This knowledge created a constant underlying anxiety, blurring the lines between public performance and political survival. You were constantly trying to read the crowd, to gauge their mood, to ensure your performance secured their loyalty. One common misconception is that Roman emperors merely showed up to games and passively watched. In reality, their presence and active participation in public spectacles were crucial tools for legitimizing their rule and maintaining popular support. Emperors engaged with the crowd, dispensed favors, and often sat through entire days of games, demonstrating their connection to the populace. The very popularity of an emperor could hinge on his ability to provide lavish spectacles and to engage effectively with the masses, making these events a critical yet demanding part of their job. Historians still meticulously study Roman coins which depict emperors in various public roles, triumphal arches which commemorate their public achievements, and imperial biographies which detail their public appearances and interactions with the populace to understand the precise role of public spectacle in imperial legitimacy and the rigorous demands placed upon the emperor as a living symbol of the state. Furthermore, the threat of assassination was always present during public appearances. While surrounded by guards, a determined assassin, perhaps a desperate gladiator, a disgruntled citizen, or an agent of a rival could attempt a strike amidst the chaos of a large crowd. This added another layer of terrifying danger to your public duties. turning every public appearance into a potential ambush. Your duty to be seen, to be accessible, paradoxically heightened your vulnerability. The vastness of the empire also meant that your public performance was constantly being replicated and reinforced through statues, reliefs, and coins distributed across millions of square miles. You were simultaneously present everywhere and nowhere. Your true human self consumed by the idealized image of the emperor. This constant projection of a perfect, divine image created a profound disconnect from your own mortal reality. Adding to the psychological burden, the psychological toll of constantly being on, of perpetually performing a divine role, would be immense. You would live with profound anxiety, constantly aware of the public gaze, the weight of expectation, and the fragility of your image. This relentless pressure to project an unblemished facade. Even when your body ached from old age or your mind battled paranoia, would erode your peace of mind, leaving you exhausted and perhaps cynical about the fleeting nature of adoration. Your life was a continuous theatrical production, and you were its eternally performing, endlessly scrutinized. Lead actor. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the relentless demands for public spectacle. From presiding over brutal gladiatorial games and leading grand triumphs to delivering public speeches and performing sacred rituals. Your every action was a meticulously choreographed performance designed to maintain your divine image and secure popular support. This pervasive public scrutiny, coupled with the immense psychological pressure and constant threat of assassination, was a defining, profoundly stressful aspect of your job, ensuring that your reign was a continuous act of exhausting public performance, even as you, the Roman emperor, grappled with the relentless demands of public spectacle and battled the pervasive stress of constant performance. Your greatest, most terrifying burden emerged from within your own family succession struggles. Forget smooth transitions of power. The absence of a clear, stable line of inheritance meant your choice of an heir could spark civil war or, horrifyingly, even lead to your own demise, making your job profoundly sucked. Imagine the constant anxiety that gnawed at you, day and night, even if your reign seemed stable. Unlike later hereditary monarchies, the Roman Empire, especially during the Principate, the early imperial period, did not have a firmly established, universally accepted law of succession. There was no automatic right for your eldest son to inherit the throne. This created a perilous power vacuum with every imperial illness or aging, turning the question of who would rule after you into a brutal, high-stakes game. Your very existence was a ticking clock. It truly sucked to be perpetually worried about your own funeral. Your primary duty was to ensure a stable succession, to prevent the empire from plunging into the chaos of civil war upon your death. This meant meticulously planning and preparing for your successor, a process fraught with immense political risk. You could choose an heir through various methods. Adoption. This was a common and often preferred method, particularly during the era of the Five Good Emperors, 96 to 180 CE, where an emperor would adopt a capable individual, often a senator or general, as his son and designate him as heir. This allowed for the selection of the best man for the job, rather than relying solely on birthright. However, it was controversial. It meant bypassing your biological children, if any, and your chosen heir might face resentment from other family members or ambitious rivals. Biological son. If you had a biological son, he would be the natural choice and often the preferred candidate by many within the court and populace. However, even a biological son's succession was not guaranteed. He might be too young, too inexperienced, or simply lack the charisma or military support needed to command the legions. Worse, ambitious generals or senators might view your son as weak, preferring to back their own candidate, leading to factionalism and potential civil war. Family members, you might choose a brother, a nephew, or a son-in-law. This kept power within the imperial family, but could still lead to rivalries among competing relatives. The act of designating an heir was incredibly perilous for you, the reigning emperor. Threat to current life by naming an heir. You effectively created a rival. The designated successor might grow impatient for the throne, or ambitious factions might encourage him to usurp power prematurely. History is replete with examples of emperors like Tiberius, who grew paranoid of Germanicus, or Domitian, who feared potential rivals who became suspicious of their designated heirs, sometimes leading to their removal or even execution. Imagine naming your successor, only for him to become a target, or worse, for you to become a target of his ambition. It truly sucked to name your potential killer. Resentment from the undesignated. Any family member or powerful general not chosen as heir would become a potential enemy. Their disappointment could fester into resentment, leading them to plot against you, to seek to undermine your chosen successor, or even to launch their own bid for the throne upon your death. This turned your extended family and your most capable generals into a minefield of potential threats. Civil war, a poorly chosen or ambiguous succession could plunge the entire Roman Empire into a devastating civil war, as competing claimants, backed by rival legions, fought for the throne. The Year of the Four Emperors. 69 CE is a grim example, where 4 emperors rose and fell violently in rapid succession, tearing the empire apart. You were responsible for preventing such chaos, making your choice of heir a matter of immense, life or death strategic planning. The Praetorian Guard, your elite protectors as discussed in Chapter 3, played a crucial and terrifying role in succession struggles. They could depose or assassinate an unpopular emperor and acclaim a new one, often choosing the highest bidder. This meant that winning their loyalty or ensuring your chosen heir had their support was paramount, adding another layer of complex, mercenary negotiation to your succession planning. You were constantly trying to buy their loyalty, ensuring they wouldn't sell your throne to someone else. The Senate, while stripped of much of its direct political power under the empire, still held significant symbolic influence. Gaining their approval or legitimization for your chosen heir was important to maintain the facade of Republican tradition and to secure broad elite support. However, senators could also be ambitious, forming factions and supporting rival claimants, adding another layer of intrigue to the succession process. The psychological toll of constantly planning for your own death and the ensuing power struggle would be immense. You would live with profound anxiety, perpetually trying to manage competing ambitions, to identify potential threats, and to secure the loyalty of key players, your family, your generals, the Praetorian Guard, and the Senate. Sleep would be restless. Plagued by nightmares of plots and civil wars, this relentless mental strain, this constant need to orchestrate a seamless transition in a system designed for volatility, would erode your peace of mind, leading to profound paranoia and isolation. Your closest family members, even your own sons, could become objects of suspicion, transforming your personal relationships into political calculations. It truly sucked to be perpetually worried about who would kill you for your job. One common misconception is that the Roman Empire had a clear, established hereditary succession from its inception. In reality, the Roman imperial succession was rarely truly hereditary in a direct, primogeniture, firstborn, son sense throughout much of its history. Especially during the Principate, emperors often adopted their heirs or relied on acclamation by the legions or the Praetorian Guard. This lack of a clear, unbreakable rule of succession was a constant source of instability, civil war, and assassinations, contributing directly to the high turnover rate among emperors. The later empire, the Dominate, would see a more formalized hereditary succession, but the early centuries were characterized by this inherent instability. Historians still meticulously study Roman legal texts on adoption and succession, imperial biographies, and historical accounts of civil wars to understand the precise mechanisms and profound challenges of Roman imperial succession, confirming its often violent and unpredictable nature. Furthermore, the curse of childlessness was a major concern for emperors. If you had no biological sons, you were forced to rely on adoption or other relatives, which, while pragmatic, could introduce uncertainty and potential rivalry. This personal biological reality could have immense political consequences, turning a personal misfortune into a dynastic crisis. The very act of campaigning abroad, as explored in Chapter 4, could exacerbate succession struggles. If you were far from Rome, leading legions, ambitious rivals might seize the opportunity to declare themselves emperor, forcing you into a difficult decision: abandon your campaign to return to Rome, or risk losing the capital to a usurper. This constant threat of internal military challenges, fueled by succession uncertainty, added another layer of peril to your military duties. The shadow of your predecessors, many of whom met violent ends due to succession struggles, would also hang over you. You knew the grim history of your office, the numerous emperors who were betrayed by their own guards, poisoned by their family, or killed by rival claimants. This historical precedent reinforced the constant terror of your own potential fate, making you perpetually aware that your absolute power came with an almost guaranteed violent end, orchestrated by those closest to you. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by the pervasive reality of succession struggles, the lack of a clear line of inheritance, the constant plotting by ambitious rivals including your own family, and the mercenary loyalty of the Praetorian Guard meant that your choice of an heir could spark civil war or, horrifyingly, lead to your own assassination. This profound instability, ensuring your reign was a perpetual battle for political survival, was a defining, profoundly stressful aspect of your job, leaving you perpetually paranoid and isolated at the pinnacle of power, even as you, the emperor, battled the relentless pressures of succession and the constant threat of military coups. Your divine body, though revered and seemingly pampered, remained tragically mortal. Forget perfect health or the limitless indulgences of a god. Your unique and often contradictory lifestyle, coupled with the immense stress of your imperial duties, led to pervasive physical decay, marked by diet-related ailments, chronic pain, and a surprisingly short lifespan, making your rule profoundly sucked. Imagine your daily existence within the lavish imperial palace. While common Romans might struggle with basic sustenance, you, the emperor, had access to an unlimited array of rich, exotic foods from across the vast empire. Banquets were frequent, lengthy affairs as explored in Why Roman Banquets Were an Awful, Gluttonous Ordeal, laden with roasted meats, imported delicacies, sweet pastries made with honey and dates, and copious amounts of wine. This constant indulgence, while a symbol of your immense wealth and a means of political networking, often led to profound health issues. Gout, a painful form of arthritis caused by high levels of uric acid, often linked to diets rich in red meat, organ meats, and wine. Many Roman elites, including emperors, suffered from gout, causing agonizing joint pain, particularly in the feet and hands. Imagine your feet throbbing with excruciating pain, making it difficult to walk or stand for long ceremonies. A constant reminder of your excessive diet, obesity, while not universally true for all emperors, a sedentary lifestyle combined with a rich diet could lead to obesity. This would strain your joints, cardiovascular system, and make you more susceptible to other ailments. Severe dental problems analysis of imperial mummies and elite Roman skeletal remains consistently reveals pervasive and often severe dental issues. Your diet, while rich, was likely high in natural sugars from fruits, honey, wine, and, crucially, your bread would contain abrasive grit and tiny stone particles from primitive grinding methods. This led to rampant tooth decay, severe wear, painful abscesses, and gum disease, causing chronic agony, difficulty eating, and systemic infections. Imagine suffering from a throbbing toothache for weeks, even as the most powerful man in the world, with no real relief beyond crude extractions. It truly sucked to have cavities as a king. Digestive issues, the sheer quantity and richness of the food, combined with a sedentary lifestyle, could lead to chronic indigestion, constipation, and other gastrointestinal problems, compounding your discomfort. The practice of inbreeding within the imperial family to maintain the purity of the divine bloodline, common in earlier periods, though less so in later Rome than in Egypt, also contributed to physical decay. Emperors often married close relatives, increasing the risk of genetic disorders and inherited health problems, manifesting as various deformities, weaknesses, or chronic illnesses that would plague your life, physically compromising your divine image. Constant stress was an inescapable companion. The relentless burden of maintaining Pax Deorum, ensuring the Nile's flood, leading armies to victory, managing the vast empire, and navigating the treacherous currents of palace intrigue created a state of perpetual anxiety. Chronic stress severely impacts the immune system, cardiovascular health, and mental well-being, contributing to a range of physical ailments, from digestive disorders to heart strain and heightened susceptibility to infectious diseases. You were under constant psychological siege, and your mortal body paid the ultimate price, slowly eroding under the pressure. It truly sucked to literally stress yourself to death. The lack of effective medical knowledge and care exacerbated all these health issues, while emperors had access to the best physicians in the land like Galen, who practiced in Rome ancient Roman medicine. Despite its advancements in some areas like basic surgery or bone setting, lacked a true understanding of microbiology, internal medicine, or the long-term effects of diet and stress. Treatments often involved bloodletting, which could weaken you, purging, rudimentary herbal remedies, some effective, many not, and reliance on magical spells or divine intervention. This meant you suffered chronic ailments that would be easily managed today, enduring immense pain and slow decline without true relief. It truly sucked to be a patient in ancient times. Even as an emperor, occupational hazards unique to being an emperor also contributed to your physical decay. Heavy regalia, the immense weight of imperial regalia, such as heavy gold crowns, elaborate robes, and ceremonial armor, even if not for daily wear, worn for hours during public appearances and rituals, could cause chronic neck and back strain, contributing to musculoskeletal issues over decades. Lead exposure. While debated, some historians speculate about chronic lead poisoning from lead pipes for water and lead-lined cooking vessels common in Roman aristocratic homes. While evidence is not conclusive for widespread imperial poisoning, exposure certainly existed and could contribute to various ailments, including neurological issues. Lack of exercise. Compared to legionaries or gladiators, your lifestyle was relatively sedentary. While you might engage in hunting or riding, much of your time was spent in court, in ritual ceremonies, or overseeing administration from a static position. This sedentary lifestyle, combined with a rich diet, could lead to various ailments that more active Romans might have avoided. Archaeological analysis of royal mummies and elite Roman skeletal remains provides chilling evidence of this physical decay. Studies have revealed emperors and wealthy Romans suffering from severe arthritis, spinal deformities, extensive dental decay and abscesses, evidence of arterial disease, and signs of chronic infections. Even rulers famed for their vitality and long reigns often showed signs of a body worn down by disease. Diet and stress, dying at ages that seem relatively young by modern standards. For instance, Emperor Claudius reportedly suffered from various health issues throughout his life, including lameness and a weak constitution, though he reigned for many years. Marcus Aurelius, despite being a philosopher emperor who endured many campaigns, suffered from chronic stomach ailments and pain, possibly due to stress or diet. Their physical remains and historical accounts offer a stark reminder of human vulnerability, regardless of imperial status. One common misconception is that Roman emperors enjoyed perfect health due to their immense wealth and access to the best care. In reality, while their privileged status protected them from starvation and some common deprivations of the poor, they were highly susceptible to endemic diseases, conditions exacerbated by their lifestyle, excessive diet, inbreeding, stress, and the limitations of ancient medicine. Their physical remains often tell a story of immense suffering beneath the veneer of imperial power. Historians still meticulously study these paleopathological findings from imperial tombs and elite burial sites, comparing them with medical papyri and textual accounts to reconstruct the precise health profiles and causes of death of individual emperors, consistently revealing a complex interplay of genetic predisposition, lifestyle, and the brutal reality of ancient health. Furthermore, the psychological toll of witnessing your own body slowly succumb to these ailments, knowing that your perfect divine image was subtly decaying, would be immense. You would suppress signs of pain or weakness in public, performing your sacred duties with unwavering composure, even as your body rebelled internally. This emotional repression, combined with the profound loneliness of your position, would add another layer of psychological suffering, ensuring that your path to immortality was paved with silent, agonizing physical decay. Your imperial majesty often concealed profound personal misery. The short lifespan of many Roman emperors, particularly during tumultuous periods, meant that they often succumbed to illness or the cumulative effects of their brutal job long before old age, even if not assassinated. The relentless physical decay brought on by imperial life often ensured a premature end, preventing them from enjoying the fruits of their absolute power for long. Your pursuit of lasting glory came at the cost of your own mortality. Ensuring your reign was a constant race against time and your own body. So, your life as a Roman emperor was profoundly sucked by pervasive physical decay. Your divine yet mortal body was plagued by diet-related ailments, chronic pain from excessive indulgences and stress, and unique occupational hazards from your royal duties. This relentless physical and psychological assault, unchecked by primitive medicine, ensured that your reign was a constant battle against the slow, agonizing erosion of your very being, a grim testament to the heavy price of being a living god. Even as your mortal body slowly succumbed to physical decay and chronic illness, your ultimate purpose as pharaoh was to secure your eternal existence. Forget a peaceful, simple burial. Your ultimate fate involved the chilling, complex, and often gruesome process of mummification, followed by the terrifying prospect of historical damnatio memoriae, damnation of memory, ensuring that the price of your immortality was profoundly sucked Imagine your final moments as a living pharaoh, perhaps weakened by illness, your life's immense burdens finally lifting. But even in death, your journey was far from over. It was just beginning, and it would be meticulously controlled. The very moment you took your last breath, a vast, complex, and highly specialized process would commence, transforming your perishable human body into an enduring vessel for the afterlife. This process was designed to ensure your successful journey to the divine, but it was anything but serene. It truly sucked to have your body become a post-mortem project. The process of mummification, lasting a meticulous 70 days, was performed by highly specialized embalmers, often priests or skilled craftsmen, dedicated solely to the sacred task. Your body, the sacred vessel of Horus, would be subjected to a series of gruesome, yet ritualistically precise procedures. Brain removal. Imagine a long, hooked bronze instrument inserted through your nostrils, meticulously stirring and drawing out your brain tissue, which was then discarded as unimportant. This act, vital for preventing decay, was a profound invasion of your most intimate physical being. For the embalmers, it was a practical step, but for you, the deceased, it was the ultimate, horrifying violation of your bodily integrity. Evisceration. An incision would be made, typically on the left side of your abdomen. Your internal organs, the stomach, intestines, liver, and lungs, would be carefully removed. One by one, these vital organs, believed to be crucial for the afterlife, would then be separately dried with natron salt and meticulously placed into canopic jars, each jar dedicated to one of the 4 sons of Horus, who protected specific organs. Your heart, however, believed to be the centers of intellect, emotion, and the soul, was usually left in place, as it would be weighed against the feather of Maat in the Hall of Two Truths during your judgment before Osiris. This act of disembowelment, however ritualized, was a terrifying process that ensured your physical body, in death, was no longer truly whole. It really sucked to be scooped out after you died. Drying with natron, your empty body cavity would be thoroughly cleaned, often with palm wine and spices. Then your entire body would be packed and covered with vast quantities of natron salt, a naturally occurring mineral mixture of sodium, carbonate, and bicarbonate. This dry salt would slowly draw all moisture out of your tissues, preventing decomposition. Imagine your flesh slowly shriveling, desiccating, becoming hard and leathery over the course of weeks. A grim transformation from living flesh to an enduring, lifeless shell. This prolonged drying process was essential for preservation, but utterly stripped your body of its former vitality. Stuffing and shaping. After approximately 40 days in natron, the primary drying period, your body, now shriveled and rigid, would be carefully restuffed with linen, sawdust, or other materials to restore its lifelike form and contours. This was where the artistry of the embalmers came in, ensuring your mummified body perfectly resembled your living self, or an idealized version thereof. For your ka and ba to recognize, your features might be subtly padded, your skin oiled, and cosmetics applied, preparing you for your eternal appearance. This meticulous reconstruction was both an act of reverence and a practical necessity for your eternal identity. Wrapping the final, painstaking stage involved wrapping your body in hundreds of yards of linen bandages. Each limb, each finger, each toe would be individually wrapped, then entire layers applied to your body, meticulously binding you. Amulets, charms, and protective spells would be placed between the layers, designed to safeguard you from evil spirits and ensure your successful journey through the underworld. This process was incredibly time-consuming, often taking 15 days, and ensured your body was tightly bound and perfectly preserved, a mummy destined for eternity, sealed within layers of protective linen. This meticulous, often gruesome process was performed not for your comfort, but for your eternal efficacy as pharaoh. Your successful mummification was believed to be absolutely crucial for your rebirth in the afterlife and your continued ability to maintain Ma'at from the cosmic realm. Your eternal glory hinged on the precise execution of these funerary rites, making your post-mortem preparation as demanding and stressful as your living reign. Your ultimate destination, the field of reeds, required a perfectly preserved vessel, and the embalmers were the tireless artisans who provided it, albeit through a terrifying process. However, even death offered no guarantee of peace or a smooth transition into eternity. For some pharaohs, a different terrifying fate awaited historical damnatio memoriae, damnation of memory. This was a deliberate act of political and religious annihilation, designed to erase a pharaoh from history if you were deemed a heretic, a tyrant, or an illegitimate ruler by your successors. Your name could be systematically carved out of monuments, your statues defaced, your cartouches' royal name seals chiseled away, your images destroyed, and your very existence purged from official records. This was an attempt to erase your very being from the historical record and to deny your ka and ba a physical vessel or a remembered name to return to, thus condemning your soul to eternal oblivion in their belief system. Imagine having lived as a god, only for your successors to try and literally erase your memory from time itself. It truly sucked to be canceled by history. Forever. Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, reigned CC 1353-1336 BCE, who introduced a radical monotheistic cult of the Aten, suffered a profound damnatio memoriae after his death. His name was systematically chipped away from monuments, his images defaced, and his capital city of Akhetaten largely destroyed by his successors, particularly Horemheb and the early Ramesside pharaohs, who sought to restore the traditional polytheistic religion and eradicate all traces of his revolutionary reign. Hatshepsut, a powerful female pharaoh, reigned c. 1479-1458 BCE, who ruled in her own right, also experienced damnatio memoriae after her death, with her images and inscriptions often defaced or erased by her stepson Thutmose III, perhaps due to political resentment or to reassert traditional male kingship and erase her unconventional reign. These powerful historical figures, despite their immense reigns and physical mummification, serve as chilling reminders of the fragility of a pharaoh's legacy and the brutal political stakes involved even after death. This common historical fact highlights the terrifying vulnerability of even the most powerful rulers to political and historical annihilation. One unique detail, sometimes overlooked, is the fear of inadequate mummification or tomb desecration that haunted pharaohs. Despite the elaborate preparations, tomb robbery was a constant problem throughout ancient Egyptian history, particularly during periods of political instability. The elaborate traps, false passages, and curses inscribed in tombs were all desperate attempts to deter robbers. The pharaoh lived with the knowledge that even after enduring the gruesome mummification, their eternal rest, and thus their ability to achieve a successful afterlife, could be compromised by human greed. This added another layer of posthumous stress, ensuring that their pursuit of immortality was not just about their own actions, but also about the vigilance of their successors and the effectiveness of their tomb defenses. This constant concern for the post-mortem security of their body was a defining feature of their reign, tying their living anxiety to their ultimate resting place. Historians still meticulously study archaeological findings of robbed tombs and intact mummies to understand the precise effectiveness of various tomb protection methods and the sheer persistence of tomb robbers throughout ancient Egyptian history, confirming the constant threat of desecration. Furthermore, the very cost and resources dedicated to your mummification and tomb construction were immense, continuing to drain the imperial treasury even after your death. Vast quantities of natron, oils, resins, linen, and precious metals were consumed. Hundreds of craftsmen, priests, and laborers were employed for months, drawing resources from the state. This immense investment, continuing even after your death, underscored the absolute necessity of your eternal preservation for Egypt's well-being, reinforcing your supreme importance, but also the relentless demands you continued to exert on the living. Even from beyond the grave, your post-mortem demands were as taxing as your living ones. The psychological burden of this lifelong preoccupation with your own death and subsequent mummification, knowing that your body would undergo such a gruesome transformation, would be immense. You were constantly planning for your own demise, selecting materials for your coffin, commissioning funerary texts, and overseeing the construction of your tomb. This morbid obsession, however grand, would subtly permeate your consciousness, making your reign a continuous preparation for your own death, stripping away any illusion of enduring vitality. You built a monument to your immortality, but it was also a constant, chilling reminder of your inevitable mortality, making your daily life a profound, ongoing contemplation of death. The threat of damnatio memoriae was a powerful political tool, often used by new dynasties or triumphant factions to delegitimize a previous ruler and solidify their own authority. The fear of eternal oblivion, of having your very existence erased from the records of the gods and men, was a terrifying prospect for any ancient Egyptian ruler who valued their legacy and their successful afterlife above all else. This meant that the living pharaoh's actions were constantly influenced by the need to secure a favorable historical record and to prevent their successors from taking such a devastating retaliatory measure. Your reign was not just about ruling, it was about ensuring your posthumous survival against political annihilation. So, your ultimate fate as an Egyptian pharaoh was profoundly sucked due to the chilling process of mummification and the terrifying prospect of historical damnatio memoriae. Your body was gruesomely transformed into an eternal vessel, and your legacy constantly vulnerable to political erasure, capable of condemning your soul to oblivion. This relentless pursuit of immortality, both physical and historical, was a defining, profoundly miserable aspect of your job as a living god, ensuring that even in death, you found no true peace or guaranteed remembrance, only the chilling demands of your eternal state. You've endured the divine burden of being transformed into a living god, suffered the suffocating regimen of ritual and robes, wrestled with the immense dynastic pressure to produce heirs, battled the insidious threats of palace intrigue, confronted the immense human and political cost of the war and conquest, borne the terrifying responsibility for famine and plague, toiled relentlessly to build for eternity at immense human cost, and grappled with the pervasive physical decay of your mortal body. Finally, you endured the chilling process of mummification and faced the terrifying prospect of historical damnatio memoriae. As the echoes of ancient ceremonies fade and the phantom scents of incense and embalming oils finally dissipate, a profound, lingering truth settles upon you. Being an Egyptian pharaoh was not a life of absolute power and effortless divinity. It was a profoundly disturbing and stressful job. A gilded cage where ultimate authority was inextricably linked with immense personal sacrifice, crushing responsibility, and constant anxiety. Both in life and beyond the grave, consider the unimaginable burdens of your divine status. From childhood, your individuality was systematically stripped away, replaced by the sacred persona of Horus. You were perpetually on stage, every action and word meticulously choreographed to uphold the cosmic order, the fate of your entire kingdom, its prosperity, the Nile's flood. Military victories was attributed directly to your divine favor, placing an immense, terrifying responsibility for natural phenomena utterly beyond your control. This constant pressure to be perfect, to be the living link between gods and men, was a profound psychological weight that never truly lifted. It truly sucked to literally be a god who carried the weight of the world. Then there's the relentless, oppressive demands of your royal duties. Your life was a ceaseless cycle of complex rituals, temple ceremonies, and administrative oversight. You were the supreme commander of vast armies, constantly facing external threats and internal rebellions, bearing the immense human and political cost of every campaign. Your personal life was a breeding ground for dynastic pressure and treacherous palace intrigue, where ambitious queens and consorts schemed, and the threat of assassination by poison or dagger was a constant, terrifying reality. Your gilded palace, a symbol of your power, was simultaneously a prison, riddled with spies and filled with paranoia. And what about the profound personal sacrifice and physical toll? You were denied the simple comforts of true privacy, genuine personal relationships, or a life free from relentless scrutiny. Your vow of purity often symbolized, even if not literally practiced for all pharaohs, your constrained diet. And your sedentary lifestyle contributed to unique health issues like severe dental problems and physical decay. The constant stress, the lack of true rest, and the pressure to suppress emotion all chipped away at your vitality, leading to a surprisingly short lifespan for many, a testament to the fact that even a living god was ultimately mortal and vulnerable. Finally, the chilling post-mortem demands and the fragility of your legacy, even in death. Your service continued. Your body underwent the gruesome, meticulous process of mummification, a physical transformation into an eternal vessel for your Ka and Ba, your tomb. A monumental testament to your ambition, was also a place where you continued to demand service, initially through horrifying human sacrifice in earlier dynasties, or later through thousands of Shabti figures. And despite all this, your eternal memory was never truly secure. The threat of damnatio memoriae, the systematic erasure of your name and image by vengeful successors, loomed large, capable of condemning your soul to eternal oblivion. Your entire existence, even beyond the grave, remained a profound performance and a precarious struggle for immortal recognition. It truly sucked to be erased from eternity. The very concept of the pharaoh, while representing unparalleled authority and spiritual power, was in practice a gilded cage, a life of constant extreme pressure that few modern leaders could comprehend. Their daily existence was a testament to the immense psychological and physical burden of absolute power, tempered by the fragile realities of human mortality, unpredictable nature, and ruthless political ambition. The grandeur depicted in their monuments often masks the profound, unacknowledged misery of the individual who reigned. One particularly poignant and often overlooked detail is the pharaoh's direct responsibility for the morale and well-being of his soldiers and laborers, while they wielded immense power to compel vast workforces like those building temples or pyramids, or to lead armies into battle. Their success depended on the productivity and loyalty of these masses. A pharaoh who failed to inspire, or whose reign led to excessive suffering through famine or military defeat, could face rebellion or erosion of legitimacy. This meant that while they commanded brutally, they also had to engage in various forms of propaganda, public rituals, and sometimes even genuine acts of benevolence to maintain the consent or at least compliance of the governed. This constant balancing act between divine authority and human realities added a unique layer of stress to their job. Historians still meticulously study temple reliefs depicting pharaohs offering grain to the populace or personally inspecting monumental projects, debating whether these were purely propaganda or reflected genuine concern for their subjects' well-being in an attempt to maintain social order. Ultimately, your life as an Egyptian pharaoh was a profoundly disturbing and stressful job. Far removed from the romanticized image of serene omnipotence, it was a rigorous, relentless existence consumed by divine responsibilities, political peril, and immense personal sacrifice, all designed to ensure the continuity of a civilization. The ultimate power you wielded came at a profound, unyielding cost to your body, your mind, and your very soul, ensuring that even a living God knew the deep misery of an eternal burden. As you now drift into a deep, comforting sleep, let the distant murmurs of ancient rituals and the imagined weight of a double crown finally subside. You are safe in your own time, far removed from the chilling demands of absolute power and the relentless burdens of an ancient throne. May your dreams be peaceful, filled with the quiet certainty of personal autonomy and the profound comfort of a life where your worth is measured not by divine decree, but by the simple joys of being human. A stark contrast to the disturbing and stressful truth we've explored tonight. And now, good night, and have sweet dreams.